There is no doubt that the automotive industry is changing fast and that sedans are starting to become extinct. Mazda just announced that it's discontinuing the Mazda 6 literally like 3 days after my review came out, so that was a bit disappointing. There's going to come a time where automakers no longer have flagship sedans, they'll have flagship SUVs and flagship electric cars. But until that happens, let's enjoy sedans like these a little bit longer. My name is Omar, and today I'm test driving the 2021 Volkswagen Arteon. Now, a lot of people out there call the Arteon the poor man's Audi A5 Sportback or Audi A7. While I get the reference since this is a hatchback, sportback type of thing, actually at some trim levels, the Arteon can even end up costing more than a base level Audi A5 Sportback. Instead, think of this as a competitor to the Kia Stinger, but not the twin turbo V6 Stinger. Think of this as a competitor to the 4-cylinder turbo Stinger. Yes, in my opinion, this is definitely one of the most beautiful Volkswagens ever made. It looks gorgeous from every angle. In fact, if you know a little bit of Volkswagen history, this is the successor to the CC, which wasn't really that popular. So Volkswagen decided to give that sedan better looks, a much better interior than any other Volkswagen, and a new name. Will it help, and should you buy this over the Kia Stinger? Well, let's find out. Today I'll give you a tour of the 2021 Volkswagen Arteon, and then make sure you stick around until the end of my video to get my impressions on how it drives and how it stacks up against the Stinger. Make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you hit like. All right, let's do this. All right, so let's kick it off like we usually do by taking a look at all of the cool and interesting things that you should know about the 2021 Volkswagen Arteon. So Volkswagen has slightly updated the Arteon for the 2021 model year with a few design enhancements and a better interior and better tech. One of the coolest and my favorite design touches is a light bar that runs across the grille and connects the daytime running lights. We saw this on the Volkswagen ID4 as well, and I won't be surprised if Volkswagen starts implementing this in other model updates. By the way, this light bar is only available on the SEL R line and the SEL Premium R line. You can't get it on the base SE. All right, so usually I'll discuss the gauge cluster in the interior part of my review, but it deserves to be mentioned here because the Volkswagen digital cockpit here is standard across the lineup. There are a ton of ways to configure this thing, and it's absolutely gorgeous. You can circle through a lot of info, and you can also change the view to 3 different modes, including a full screen navigation view, which is pretty awesome. Now, all Arteon trims come standard with an 8-inch touchscreen display, which houses Volkswagen's infotainment system, and there's a couple of cool things in here that I want to show you. The screen here actually has a proximity sensor, so as you bring your hand closer to the screen, the icons will have labels that appear so you know what they are, and as you take your hand away, the icons will disappear for a cleaner look. But my favorite thing here is the gesture control feature. If you're in a section of the infotainment which has other menu screens, you can just wave your hand and swipe through menu options left and right. This is very, very cool. Now, say I hop into the car menu and you can see some driving data, and there's menu screens here, so I can also just wave my hand and swipe through all the information right here. Another one of my favorite things is the customization screen for the driver assist systems. Instead of a boring list to customize your driver assist systems, you have this really cool graphic with everything highlighted in blue. You can click on the blue items and customize it. So you don't have to go through a list and try to figure out what a certain system does. You can just click on this graphic and it will tell you exactly what it does and what you're customizing. This is very nice. The next thing I want to point out isn't a cool or interesting feature. It's just something that kind of annoys me. You see all these blank buttons right here really piss me off. Why do they have to be there? I understand that some of the items aren't available in the United States or on certain trim levels, but there has to be a better way to design this section instead of putting blank buttons everywhere, because it makes me feel like I'm missing out. But here is the craziest blank button I've seen ever in my life. So my test model here doesn't have a heated steering wheel. You can only get that on the SEL Premium. So on the steering wheel, if you look closely, there's a blank button for a heated steering wheel. Now, if I push on it, it doesn't do anything. If I push on the other buttons, they push and I feel some haptic feedback. This is just a blank button and it won't turn on at all. It's just there. And that's really, really weird. By the way, I discovered something weird while messing around with the whole gauge cluster and the infotainment. If you have the map displayed in the gauge cluster, you won't be able to see it here on the infotainment screen unless you go here, click display map and instrument cluster. It disappears from the gauge cluster and displays here. You can't have both displayed at the same time. That's the first time I've ever seen that. All right, so how much does the Arteon cost? The base SE starts at around $37,000, and the top of the line SEL Premium R line starts around $47,000. As tested here, you're looking at around $43,000. So yeah, as you start moving up trim levels and adding options, things can get a little bit pricey, but keep in mind the Arteon does come with a bunch of standard features that you might otherwise think are optional. For example, the base Arteon SE comes standard with the Volkswagen Digital Cockpit Gauge Cluster display. Also standard is the 8-inch touchscreen display for the infotainment system, and it also comes standard with navigation and wireless Apple CarPlay and wireless Android Auto. You also get a 3-zone climate control, dual climate control for the front passengers, and 1 climate control for the rear passengers. Now, as with most Volkswagen models, you might think that it comes standard with cloth seats, but not here. The Volkswagen Arteon SE comes standard with leatherette seating. Not only that, you get standard heated front seats, which is pretty nice. And you also get a bunch of standard driver assist tech, including blind spot notification, forward collision warning, and pedestrian monitoring. Let's talk horsepower and torque. Power comes from a 2-liter 4-cylinder turbo engine pumping out 268 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque, and that's mated to an 8-speed automatic transmission. 0 to 60 comes in at 6.4 seconds with a top speed of 128 miles an hour, so it's not that quick, but it's not that terrible either. Drive modes wise, you have Eco, you have Comfort, Normal, Sport, and then you have Custom, where you can customize everything to your personal liking. Fuel economy for the Arteon 4 Motion comes in at 20 city and 31 highway. You have an 18.3 gallon tank capacity. Since refueling and putting about 85 miles on it, I'm averaging 15.8 miles a gallon. Now let's take a closer look at the exterior design, and I have to say this is probably the best looking Volkswagen ever made, well, besides the iconic Volkswagen Beetle. This thing looks really good, but does it look better than the Kia Stinger, which I would say is its closest competitor? So let me know in the comments which one you would pick, the Kia Stinger or the Arteon. Either way, I can say things like that it sits really low and wide and it has an aggressive stance with a lot of sharp character lines, but I'm just gonna say that this thing looks good from every angle. It's definitely one of the best looking sedans in the mass market segment. I might get killed for this in the comments, but I honestly think that this thing has way more character than the Audi A5 Sportback, because to me, all Audis just look like every other Audi. The Arteon, on the other hand, looks nothing like any other Volkswagen. As for the wheels, I like the wheels on my test model quite a bit. The standard SE comes with 18-inch wheels, and the SEL R-Line comes with 19-inch wheels, and the top of the line model comes with 20-inch wheels. Also, you know what's interesting? Unlike every other car out there, Volkswagen has opted not to put a taillight that spans the whole entire width of the rear end, but mark my words, they will probably add it in the next generation model. Let's check out the cargo capacity on the Arteon. You can pop the trunk by using your keys or a button on the inside, or you can just push the Volkswagen logo back here, and that opens it up to 27 cubic feet behind the second row. And with the second row folded, you have a massive 56 cubic feet, so it's plenty of room for a sedan. All right, time to check out the inside. The first thing that I noticed when I hopped in here is that it's very, very comfortable. The seats here are very well designed for all shapes and sizes. They are kind of sport bucket seats, but they aren't super tight, probably because you'll never take this thing to the track. Again, you get heated front seats as standard, but if you want cooled seats or a heated steering wheel, you'll have to go for the SEL Premium R-Line. Quality-wise, the overall cabin isn't bad. The first thing that I noticed when I got in here is that this is better than other Volkswagen models. They've used a lot of soft rubber materials all around the cabin. It's definitely a step above the rest of the Volkswagen models. You have really nice aluminum trim across the dashboard, on the door panels, so it looks pretty nice in here. Nonetheless, it still isn't that premium because the center console still has some hard plastic, and if you're tall and your knee is touching the center console, it can kind of hurt after driving for a long period of time. Now, besides the blank buttons that I mentioned earlier, my other biggest gripe with the Volkswagen Arteon for the 2021 model year is that Volkswagen went gloss black happy. You have gloss black everywhere, like on the steering wheel, and you have touch capacitive buttons, which allows you to put more fingerprints. You also have some gloss black on the center console, but the worst area is the climate control section. They swapped out the whole climate control with this gloss black panel with touch capacitive buttons, so you can put more fingerprints in here. I was honestly perfectly fine with the matte black plastic buttons on the outgoing model. Why are automakers so obsessed with the gloss black? It scratches easily, it doesn't look that nice, so I hope that changes eventually very soon. The best thing about the interior of the Arteon is the rear legroom. You have a massive 40.2 inches of legroom back here, so you have legroom for days and days. I'm about 6 foot tall. I sit further back than the normal human being, and as you can see, I still have a ton of legroom. Again, you do have 3-zone climate control, but you don't have any buttons back here to control the climate in the second row. I find that kind of weird. Maybe the SEL Premium has that, but I don't have it here. It seems like they were supposed to put it right here, but they didn't. Now, before I give you my opinion on how it is to drive the Arteon, let me point out a few random things that I love to show all of you. You have 4 cup holders. Bottle holders on the doors don't count as cup holders, people. 4 cup holders, 2 in the front for the front passengers, and then you have 2 in the back in the center armrest for the rear passengers. Here are what the keys look like to the Arteon. Pretty nice and compact, actually. You have a Volkswagen logo right there, and then you have lock, unlock, trunk, and remote start. Door open and close from the outside and from the inside. Pretty solid indeed. Charging game wise, if you're sitting in the front, you will enjoy that a lot. You have a wireless charger right there, and then you have two USB-C ports right here in the armrest. But if you're sitting in the back of the Arteon, all you have is a cigarette lighter charger right here. You don't have any USB ports or USB-C ports. Really weird. And let's do a quick indicator and horn sound test here on the 2021 Volkswagen Arteon. Indicator first. Pretty V-dub for sure. Now for the horn sound, let me just roll down my window a little bit. And here we go. Ooh, pretty solid. I like it. And now that I've given you a tour of the 2021 Volkswagen Arteon, let me give you my opinion on how it drives. All right, let's get to it. By the way, before I begin, I did notice that the glove box is very tiny. You can't even fit the owner's manual in the glove box. So yes, this is definitely one of the most beautiful and one of the most expensive Volkswagens that you can buy. As tested here, you're looking at $43,395, which is more than the starting price tag of an Audi A5 Sportback. But it gets even more expensive than that. The top of the line Arteon cost around $47,000, which is more than the Audi A5 Sportback Premium Plus. The only way it makes sense to buy the Arteon over the A5 Sportback is to go for the base Arteon SE, which starts at around $37,000. So what about the Kia Stinger? Well, if you're comparing this to the base Kia Stinger GT line, then it absolutely makes sense. If you're comparing it to the twin-turbo Kia Stinger GT, well, then the choice should be clear. And that's because, again, the Arteon is only available with a 4-cylinder turbo engine pumping out 268 horsepower. So how does it drive? Pretty nice, actually. It isn't as sporty as it looks or as the Kia Stinger. This is more about comfort and it's more about style. This isn't the most fun to drive V-dub. That title still belongs to the Golf GTI or the Golf R. Pop it in sport mode and things get a little bit more exciting. The steering wheel, I noticed, doesn't get any tighter. It just revs a little bit higher and the acceleration is a little bit quicker. Handling wise, it's also not that crazy exciting. It's just kind of there. The steering is pretty direct. It's not terrible by any means, but I think the Kia Stinger definitely has a more direct steering and a more sporty drive overall. The Arteon does have a lot going for it. It looks absolutely gorgeous. It has a lot of standard tech that otherwise would be optional on competitors, which can make them very pricey. It's also got a ton of legroom and a ton of cargo capacity. However, I do find myself wishing for more power, but I don't think that's ever going to happen. In fact, I think the Volkswagen Arteon will eventually be discontinued, just like the Mazda 6, and will be replaced with a fully electric sedan. Let's just hope that that electric sedan looks just as good as this, because that would be an outstanding option to consider. Either way, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe, make sure you hit like, make sure you follow me on Instagram and on TikTok. My handle is @OmarDrives. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. Peace. Yeah, it's just kind of there drive-wise, but looks-wise, it's absolutely gorgeous.